back to our exploration of cultural studies. Today we are delving into two more contemporary schools of thought, the Birmingham and Toronto schools. These schools offer unique perspectives on how culture, power, and communication intersect. The Birmingham Center of Contemporary Cultural Studies, led by Stuart Hall, focuses on the theory of hegemony. At its core, hegemony theory asserts that popular culture serves as a medium through which the dominant cultural framework is communicated. This framework implicitly conveys who holds power, the societal rules to follow, and the definition of acceptable behavior. Even without individuals realizing it, they are constantly exposed to messages that reinforce the existing social order. One example of how the Birmingham School's concept of hegemony can be used to analyze the representation of marginalized groups in popular culture is the portrayal of women in Hollywood films. Traditionally, women have been underrepresented and stereotyped in Hollywood films. They are often portrayed as one-dimensional characters who exist primarily to support the male protagonist. This reinforces the dominant cultural framework that women are subordinate to men. However, in recent years, there has been a growing movement to challenge the status quo. More and more women are being cast in leading roles in films that explore complex and nuanced female characters. This is a positive development as it helps to disrupt the dominant cultural framework and promote a more inclusive and equitable society. Can you think of any other examples of how popular culture reinforces or challenges the dominant cultural norms? So, as time progressed, the theory of hegemony evolved. John Fiske, an influential figure in this development, introduced a different perspective. Fiske believed that the widespread appeal of certain cultural elements could be viewed as an indicator of their cultural quality. In his view, popularity equates to cultural value. This perspective shifts the balance of power more towards the audience, suggesting that if something resonates with many people, it holds cultural significance. This is quite different from the earlier belief of the Frankfurt School, which viewed popular culture as a tool for suppression. The Toronto School, particularly through the work of Marshall McLuhan, takes a distinct approach by emphasizing the role of communication medium itself. McLuhan's famous verse, "The medium is the message," encapsulates this idea. He argues that the characteristics of a medium have a more significant impact on culture than the content it carries. It's not just the content of a message that matters, but also the medium in which it is delivered. For example, there is a big difference between reading a news article in a newspaper and watching the same story on television. The newspaper article is a static medium, while television is a dynamic medium. This difference in form can have a significant impact on how we process information. The newspaper article allows us to read the story at our own pace and to reflect on the information before we move on. The television, on the other hand, is a more immersive experience. The images and the sounds can overwhelm us, and we may be less likely to critically evaluate the information we are receiving. One example of how the Toronto schools focus on the medium as the message can be used to understand the impact of social media on our culture is the rise of reality TV. Reality TV shows are typically characterized by their unscripted nature, their focus on interpersonal conflicts, and their use of editing to create drama and excitement. These characteristics of the medium have led to a number of negative consequences for our culture, such as an increase in cyberbullying, social anxiety, and unrealistic expectations about relationships. Marshall McLuhan's groundbreaking book, The Gutenberg Galaxy, provides a historical context. It highlights that technologies aren't merely the tools, they transform individuals and societies. Taking the print revolution, for example, It fundamentally altered how people interacted, generated ideas, and disseminated cultural values. Similarly, the advent of television and computers, as McLuhan predicted in 1962, ushered in an electronic age. This new era compelled society to adapt to challenges like increased uncertainty, social fragmentation, and globalization. The Birmingham and the Toronto schools can be used to promote social justice and change in a number of ways. For example, we can use the Birmingham School's concept of hegemony to identify and challenge the ways in which popular culture reinforces dominant cultural norms that marginalize and oppress certain groups of people. We can also use the Toronto School's focus on the medium as a message to be more critical of the media we consume and to produce media that promotes more inclusive and equitable social values. These schools of thought remind us that culture, power, and communication are deeply intertwined. The media we use to communicate play a pivotal role in shaping our world. As we continue our exploration of cultural studies in future classes, we'll uncover even more captivating aspects of this field. So stay tuned for our next session.